We are live on YouTube as usual. We are waiting for Facebook to catch up. And we are live on Facebook. Hey, everybody, this is Paul Lathrop, the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. We're going to be recording episode 575 of the Polite Society podcast here in a few seconds. Before we get the magic rolling, I want to remind everybody, please comment on the videos that you're watching live. If you are watching it live, we'll get pertinent comments on the air. So thank you for watching, and we're going to be kicking this off. Let me make sure we're live. Yep, we're good there. And all right, if my staff is ready, here we go. I'm still hearing breathing.
He's still breathing.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep breathing.
All right, here we go. Recording in 5, 4, 3.
Hey gang, this is Masad Ayub from the Pro Arms Podcast. I'm here to remind you that our podcast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network, and I'm going to suggest you do what we do and check out the other podcasts at selfdefenseradio.net.
Treat every firearm as if it's loaded.
Never point a firearm at anything you're not willing to kill or destroy.
Keep your finger off the trigger until you are on target and ready to fire. Always be sure of your target and what lies beyond it.
Hi, and welcome to the Polite Society podcast, presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. We're recording this one on Monday, February the 8th, 2021. I'm Paul Lathrop.
I'm Rob Morse, and on tonight's show we'll talk with Brooke Cheney about suicide prevention.
I'm Amanda Suffolk, and we're going to talk about Representative Sheila Jackson Lee and the anti-gun bill, H.R. 127.
I'm John Richardson, and we note that Congresswoman Lauren Boebert now has a D.C. carry permit.
I'm Charlie Cook, and we'll talk about a DGU from Concord, New Hampshire. So climb aboard.
Strap in.
And hang on.
Even in Concord, episode 575 of the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast starts right now. All right, it's Monday. We took a week off. I will talk about why in just a minute, but we're back. It is Polite Society Podcast. Rob, as usual, we're going to start off with you. What's been up with you in the couple weeks since we've been on the air here?
It's been crazy busy, Paul. If only there were something we had to talk about. Mondays, I'm on Bill Frady's Lock and Load radio show. I joined you on the Armed Society podcast with guests Walk the Talk America. That was on Wednesday. On Wednesday, I finally got my concealed carry permit in the mail. Took the Louisiana State Police. 86-day specific example of armed defense. Then on the weekend, I was on the air with Charles Heller on America Armed and Free. Whew. John, has it been crazy for you too?
Not like that. And really nothing really gun-related. However, I did become a trucker. Now, not like Paul used to do, but I'm now the owner of a Ford Ranger pickup truck. And this is the first, a little smaller than what Paul used to drive.
A little bit.
It's the first time I've owned a truck again in about 30 to 35 years. Now my thing is I just have to decide what add-ons to make it perfect. Bedliner, running boards, little decals, you name it, there's a ton of stuff out there. So now I'm going to pass it on to Amanda.
Well, for me, the gun-related things that I did was this week I helped a friend offload his dad's gun collection. It wasn't a big collection. The friend is kind of gun neutral, and the good part was he knew enough to ask for help from a pro-gun friend. So the cool thing was one of the finds in the little collection was a nickel 1970s Colt Commander. And my friend was very pleasantly surprised at what the value of that gun was. You know, because he's like, really? Seriously? Because for him, they're just little blocks of metal. And then the other cool thing was last night I had an interview with Dwayne Liptak from Magpul. And if you've not heard the story of why Magpul has moved from Colorado, you really need to. And so let me just send you to eyeonthetargetradio.com for the February 7th show and listen, because that's the company that puts their money where their mouth is. So, hey, Charlie, what about you?
I had a Utah class up in New Hampshire recently, and I had a small home firearm safety class this past weekend. And one of the things that I'm excited about has happened to me in the last couple of weeks is I got a machine gun license here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
What?
And, yeah, if I only had the money for a machine gun, I'd really be onto something. It was, I got to tell you, it was a little bit of a process. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't disgusting, but I had to get a Curio and Relic license. And then after I had that, I was officially a gun collector. And then from there, I got my CNR permit on a Tuesday, and on Wednesday I went down to the police station to make an appointment. And I can't believe I'm going to say this. It took a whopping 5 weeks to get a machine gun license in Massachusetts. So I'm glad I'm not in Louisiana or anywhere else. I can't believe it's only 5 weeks.
Wow.
What does this machine gun license let you do?
It lets me possess a machine gun as a collector. And
only if he has the $35,000 to $40,000 to buy the machine gun as a collector.
So my deal, since I've been a gun guy, my thing is when people ask me for a license, I always say my driver's license or gun license. And for 20 years, I've wanted to say my driver's license, my gun license, or my machine gun license.
Machine gun license. Wow.
That's legitimately, I spent $100 so I could start asking people if they want to see my machine gun license instead of my driver's license when they ask for a license.
Oh my God, it's one step away from want to see my etchings.
Wow.
I'm not that kind of a church lady, so moving on. Paul, we missed you last week. What's been going on with you?
Well, I had, just to put it frankly, I had a family member that became very seriously ill on Monday, and we lost him on Tuesday. And so that's why there was only we did not have a PSP Monday night. I was going to reschedule it for Thursday night, and then with his passing, that threw everything into
Yep.
just, it's not going to happen right now. So everything's settled with that now. Everything's good. I've started making my way back to work on Thursday, and Wednesday night did a real. I was kind of there, but I wasn't. I was just really running tech for Rob's Arms Society. And then Thursday, I started getting back into the swing of things a little bit. And Friday, of course, we had a daily bullet. We had the weekly bullet on the weekends. So now I'm back really in full swing. I've had a very productive day today. Got a lot of great things lined up for upcoming daily bullets and weekly bullets. And Polite Society podcast shows. So really nothing that has to do with guns with me other than I cleaned mine and I carry them every day. But that's kind of the. Although I gotta admit, I'm gonna plug Amanda's show here. I do video production for her Eye on the Target Radio. If you catch it on OpsLens, if you catch it on YouTube or Facebook, I'm the guy that actually makes the video happen. And starting last week, and I looked at it very closely this week, she has got a commercial from Carr. It's actually it's not Carr Arms. It's the Deagle. It's the 50 caliber Desert Eagle in a tiger stripe pattern. That is
silver.
It is sexy as all get out. Oh my God, I want one. But I also, work for a nonprofit, so there's that. I get paid that way too. So, drooling over a gun is really the only thing I've been doing with guns this week. So,
Amanda, isn't that the gun that Bob said, if you're going to go crazy, and that was the one he thought someone would go for? The Deagle?
So he actually said that the gold Tiger Stripe is probably the one that's going to have the most collector's value in the long run, because it is like a gold lame over the top, like a 1970s dancer kind of thing in a gun.
Enough, right?
Right, yeah, Motown, right? And but the silver is right up there, and we got the commercial because I have been eyeballing the silver Tiger Stripe Tommy gun, and so that's on my Christmas list. So
what you need to do is you need to team up with Charlie and get the Tommy gun with the fun switch.
Right, and then Charlie's license can, yeah.
I will gladly.
And it is a curio and relic.
I need a better job or pen.
Oh, for something like that, I would need several more jobs and a few clones.
Yeah. Right.
So let's go ahead and talk training. I want to boast that we've got Masada Yub coming back to Sioux Falls, the Masada Yub group, on June 3rd through the 6th of this summer. And if you are interested in attending a Mag 40, Amanda's going to be there. And we've already got several seats spoken for. If you're interested in attending, this one is going to sell out. Email Susan at politicsandguns.com, and we'll get you signed up for the course. Or if you need more information, email me, Paul at politicsandguns.com. What I think we need to do, folks, and real quick before we do that, I need to, where was it? I want to bring this one back up because I thought it was very pertinent. Roderick says, John, you need a gun rack for your truck.
Well, I have investigated a gun vault that sits under the back seat.
Okay.
Comes directly from Ford, even.
Oh, very cool.
Wow, that is cool.
All right. Before we head off to break, I do want to ask everybody, please go look at the Self-Defense Radio Network. As you can see, if you're watching right now, all your pro-freedom podcasts in one place. We're there, Self-Defense, Gun Stories, Geeks, Gadgets, and Guns, Eye on the Target Radio, Riding Shotgun with Charlie by some guy named Charlie Cook is there. We've got more coming. We got the Armed Citizen podcast just added, and the Armed Society podcast will be up there soon. We've met all the qualifications. We've just got to get the board for SDRN to approve us. So that's SDRN.us, all your favorite pro-freedom podcasts in one place. We are going to step aside to break. When we come back, Brooke Cheney, we're going to be talking suicide prevention. We'll get to that right after this.
Your Second Amendment rights are under attack like no other time in history, and the Second Amendment Foundation needs you to take action now. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have pledged to make taking away your Second Amendment rights a top priority through gun bans, gun confiscation, government regulations, and even a gun tax. They have aligned themselves with anti-gun activists like billionaire Michael Bloomberg and appoint radicals like Beto O'Rourke as the anti-gun czar. The fight begins now with your text of Protect 2A to 474747. Text Protect 2A to 474747 to pledge your support and become a Second Amendment first responder. Your right to own a gun and protect your family are on the line. Text Protect 2A to 474747 and join the fight to protect your Second Amendment rights. Text Protect 2A to 474747 to pledge your support and become a Second Amendment first responder.
Hey, and welcome back. This is the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. This is our interview segment, and Brooke Cheney joins us. She is, and I hope I got this right, Brooke, you are with a Great Start Shooting School. Did I remember that right?
You did.
Very cool. We may talk about that in a little bit, but what I really wanted to talk with Brooke about, we had her on the Daily Bullet several weeks ago, and the reason I want to talk to her is about suicide prevention. She does suicide prevention Saturdays, and it is vital, I think, for people who are advocates for the Second Amendment to also be advocates for suicide prevention. Guns are not the cause of suicide, but I think that with the political climate we're in, and just honestly, to be human about it, it's very important to be activists in preventing suicides. Brooke, I know one area of the population that is I want to say a little more susceptible. At least there's a little higher percentage in suicides are military veterans. I think that's incredibly sad. These folks gave everything for their country. They come back and the pain is so intense for some of them, they decide to end their lives. Is that something, from what you do for suicide prevention, do you think that's true as well, that there's a higher percentage of veterans that commit suicide than the rest of the population?
So as far as suicide stats go, one of the things is men in general are the ones who commit suicide with firearms. And military men absolutely rank high as far as the amount of people who die from suicide. We have many military people in our family, and they do come back with scars you cannot see. And it's very hard. However, in the gun community, I'm a competitive shooter as well. We do a lot to raise awareness. There's a program I talked to you about before called Aiming for Zero, and it specifically talks about suicide prevention and awareness, and also giving veterans a specific place to go and call to be able to talk to other vets as well. Because yes, veteran suicide is a horrible thing. When I started learning about Aiming for Zero back in 2013 maybe, it was 21 veterans a day were dying. And no, they're not all guys. Men and women are also, obviously, they have suicide problems as well. So since 2013, with all the awareness that's been brought up by Aiming for Zero, there's a bunch of different veteran outreach suicide prevention programs. I don't know them off the top of my head. But yeah, suicide prevention among the vets is super important, as it is with everybody else.
We're already getting social media comments, and I want to remind everybody, please, if you're interested in this, if you have a comment, if you have a question, just comment on the video, and if it's relevant, we'll get your comment up on the air and we'll talk about it. Kevin Sona says, I love watching Brooke, and I always share it. You never know who needs to see it. And that's... I want to tee off on that a little bit and go in a different direction, though. Brooke, it's quite often the excuse people use why I don't want to talk to my friend about suicide is, well, I don't want to put the idea in their head if they're not thinking about it. And that's just not a concern, is it?
Well, it's a valid concern, because I can't say if you're afraid of doing something that you shouldn't be, but in all the training that I've gone to, because since I started Suicide Prevention Saturday, like we talked about before, I am not a counselor, I don't have a doctorate or anything. I was a suicidal teen, and that's why I can talk to suicide, at least from one point of view. But what I've found in general is people just want to be checked in with. It's better to ask somebody, because one of the things, another statistic is that everyone, like 80% of adults actually have had a suicidal thought. Not that they're going to go do it, but sometimes they have that thought that's just like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? If I weren't here, then I wouldn't have to, figure out what I'm getting for my truck bed, right? But the truth of it is just mentioning that, hey, if you're thinking about this, there's places to get help. And by asking someone, you open that door, because when I was suicidal, I know that I thought I wasn't worth anything. And I thought that the air I was breathing should go to someone else. So it was really hard. And if someone had reached out to me then and suggested I get help, I would have known that I mattered. So yeah, I think asking somebody if they're in a bad place, what kind of help can you give them? Because unfortunately, our trained response is, hey, do you need any help? No, I got this. Instead, just change how you ask the question. It's like, hey, it's been rough. Is there anything I can do for you? And, see where it goes. And if you ask them directly, because that's what some of the trainings tells you to do, it gives them the opportunity to at least realize that they may be showing that they're in a dark place. So it gives them an opportunity to talk with somebody else.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and open this up to my staff here while I try and catch up on a few other things. Rob, I can see the question brewing in your head.
Well, actually, it was in somebody else's head. Brooke, the way it was explained to me, we want to make a difference. We want to leave a mark in the world. For some people, under some terrible circumstances, the way they think the way they'll leave a mark is to remove themselves. But as another guy, my friend Jake Wiskerson said, we've all watched It's a Wonderful Life. How many of us have wondered what the world would be like if we weren't here? Did I really do anything important? Well, asking that question, well, what would happen if I weren't here? Oh, so you've thought of not being here. Matters of degree matter. That's different than going, I could kill myself this way, this place, this. So, no, asking the question is not going to go, oh, I'd never thought of what would happen if I weren't here. That's a natural question. I want to make a difference, so does everybody else. And one of the ways we feel that is when people ask, how are you doing? I haven't heard from you lately. I consider you a friend, and I've missed hearing from you. Talk to me.
Yeah, it can be that simple. One of the things I try to do, because I tell everyone on my Suicide for Instance Saturday, is go through your phone book. Who hasn't been on your phone in a while that you need to talk to? Because it could just be a random thought. Just, hey, I'm checking in. How you doing? And just like you just said, Rob, it's just letting someone else know you're thinking about them really can be the difference. And there's so many stories like that and anecdotes where all it took was a single phone call and it actually saved someone's life. And the part of it is you may not ever know that you saved that person's life.
Wow.
Rob, one of the interesting things when you just brought up It's a Wonderful Life, when Jimmy Stewart was doing that movie, he actually was suffering from PTSD from his experiences in World War II as a bomber pilot. And he almost didn't do the movie. And some of the sadness that the movie showed was a veteran suffering silently. So what Brooke brought up earlier, 21 veterans, 22 veterans, however many it is, a day who think that they have no other option to stop the pain. Reach out. Whether, I don't have any children of that age or that are veterans, but it may be a coworker, it may be a client. Just reach out, like you said.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that people, no, we're talking about veterans, but the other part is kids. We're on social media right now. YouTube actually has a problem with people going on and committing suicide live on Facebook. So it's a really weird place to be where people are doing this and bringing other people down with them. When I finally went to counseling as a teen, I was in group counseling, and one of the guys there, his insurance shut him off in December because he'd used up all his stuff. And in January, I ended up going to his funeral with his family because I wanted to let them know that he tried really hard. He loved them very much, but he couldn't win the battle that was going on in here. Because when I go to funerals that have people who have committed suicide, I hear the conversations. Why didn't they come to me? Why didn't they reach out? Why didn't they have me help them? And it's a hard question because we have to be the ones reaching out to them. Because when they're having a bad day, they can't get out of their heads. We're the ones who need to have to pull them out. And you don't always see signs, and you don't always know. So yeah, checking in honestly, probably the easiest thing to do. And understand that counseling is a good thing. It's not that you're broken, it's that you're actually getting help for something that you need.
Brooke, would you say that again? Because part of the disease of depression and then suicide is, I'm broken and I will never be fixed. And that's simply not true. Lots of people go, wow, I don't like the way my life is going today. And in that moment, don't see the way out, but it does get better. Tell us about it getting better, Brooke.
All right, so I have a wonderful past and I have a horrible past all at the same time. I could write the fairy tale Brooke Cheney story and I could write the nightmare Brooke Cheney story. The nightmare is where the suicide came from. I was sexually abused as a child and it was rough. And that was where the darkness came from, is I didn't understand as a kid why adults who were supposed to take care of me did what they did. And I just felt worthless and like there was something terribly wrong and that nobody really liked me. Everyone just put up with me. I didn't hear anything that people told me. I didn't hear when my mom said she loved me. I didn't hear when my dad said he loved me. I didn't hear or feel all my teachers say, oh, she's so smart, she's so beautiful, she's so this. I didn't hear any of that. All I thought of was, I did something wrong because these adults around me did these things. And that's where the darkness was. So I had my plan on how to kill myself, to make it look like an accident, so no one would know that I committed suicide, because I didn't want to cause that harm to them. And I was 18 when I walked into the Susan B. Anthony Foundation here, which is a place, a women's shelter. And I talked to them. They're like, oh, do you have a plan? I'm like, yeah. But it was my normal. It's all that I knew. I didn't know anything different. It was just how my life was. I was in pain. I was suffering. And yeah, I had thought about how to kill myself. Yeah, I had a plan to make it look like an accident. But I hadn't done it, so I didn't see what the big deal was. And that's when I got to go to counseling. And that's when they're like, no, it's really not okay for you to have a plan. You shouldn't be thinking that way. And that's actually when I got checked into a hospital. And that's where the counseling and that journey started. Does that answer your question, Rob? No.
Yes. It is exactly right that you're trying to carry a load that almost always isn't yours, or you picked it up at the wrong time. Kids can't carry that load. It's not theirs. And wow, they need some perspective to learn that. Amanda, you were going to straighten me out.
Yeah, no. I want to kind of go off to the other aspect of it, which is if you're the friend or the helper, we're all wired to fix it. And there is no real fixing it. So some of this is don't try to fix it, just try to listen and try to be there and then try to get them to the experts, because I'm not. So talk on that a minute, Brooke.
Yeah, so I went to training last December, 2019. And that's what they talked about is you and I are just sort of like facilitators. We're like, hey, checking in, what can I do for you? Did you know here in Connecticut you can call 211 and talk to an actual counselor? We're just resources to kind of let them know there is a way to get help. And you're like you said, no one could fix me. It's not like someone can go in here and be like, all those horrible thoughts you have should just be gone. You know, when people's like, get over it, stop being depressed. And it's just like, yeah, if that were easy, I would not be suicidal. It'd be fine. So
right.
Yeah, the fixing it, not so much. Options and being there and saying, hey, I'll come to counseling with you. Whatever it is you need me to help you and support you, I won't tell anyone, because that's the other thing. We're embarrassed that we're broken, that we feel broken, right, Rob? Not that we are, but we feel broken.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah.
We got just
I actually went to...
Go ahead, Brooke.
Go ahead.
I was just
going to say, I
go
went
ahead,
to my
yeah.
20th high school reunion, and I asked all my girlfriends that I went to 4 years of high school with, and I said, did you guys have any idea that I was suicidal? She's like, no, not at all. Not a single one of them. Because that's the other question everyone asks me is, how can you tell?
Wow.
And like Robin Williams, like me, you can't necessarily tell. So that's why I just reach out. Go ahead, Paul. You can go to
we're
break.
coming up on we're coming up on the bottom of the hour. We do need to head to break, but excuse me. On the other side of the break, I'd like to talk a little bit about what's going on in Connecticut, and also this thing that one of the other people here on the show knows a little bit about, and that's a DC project, because you're involved there too. So, but I'm going to go to break, and then we'll be back with more with Brooke right after this.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. If you carry a defensive handgun, you need protection from the aftermath of prosecution. Even if you do everything right, you can be the victim of an overzealous prosecutor or even be falsely accused. That is where the ACLDN comes in. They provide immediate assistance when you need it most. If you find yourself under arrest, they immediately pay bail money and the retainer for your attorney. Additional funds are available for trial and civil proceedings. Beyond the money, they have far and away the best team in the industry, providing you invaluable information and training DVDs that are included with your membership and who stand ready to work with your lawyer on your defense. People like Masad Ayub, John Farnham, James Fleming, Tom Givens, Emmanuel Capelson, Dennis Tueller, and led by network president Marty Hayes. Initial membership is only $135 for your first year, and you get 8 incredible training DVDs and other educational material when you join. If you don't have tens of thousands of dollars to defend yourself at your disposal right now, you need to be a member of the ACLDN. Go to armedcitizensnetwork.org and become a member today. And please mention that you heard about them on the Polite Society podcast.
All right, welcome back. This is the second segment of our interview with Brooke Cheney. She is a suicide prevention activist, and we're going to branch off, and we're going to want to go in a little bit of a different direction right now. Brooke, you're in Connecticut. You're the representative from Connecticut for the DC project. But what I want to tee off on first is Connecticut is not exactly known as one of the most gun-friendly states in the nation, although they do have the NSSF's headquarters are there in Connecticut, which is the gun industries group. But Connecticut itself has got some rather, let's say, challenges with their gun laws. What's going on? The legislature for Connecticut is meeting right now. What's going on in Connecticut? Are there any threats for Connecticut residents and their Second Amendment rights?
Yeah, always. The plus side of Connecticut legislation is that at least they'll put pro-gun bills against the anti-gun bills. So we have some pro-gun bills here, such as carrying in state parks. I'm looking at my notes. And Castle Doctrine is going to be addressed, and also the eliminate the act to retreat in a house of worship. But, of course, we have the gun-free zones that they want to implement. So no guns at polling places, expansion of the red flag laws, which we only fought against, 2-3 years ago. And there's an amazing tax on ammo. They want 2 cents for every round of .22 that you buy, and 5 cents for all the rest of them.
Oh,
for
wow.
every round. So, yeah.
We're not paying enough for ammo right now.
The elitism is just like insane. It drives me crazy. So, and it's worse because it's like I'm used to going to the Capitol and hanging out all day at the Capitol and doing my 3 minutes. But those of us in the political arena, we know that your 3-minute testimony is important. However, it's the people you talk to while you're waiting to do your 3 minutes and who you can touch base with and meet. Like, one of my favorite things is going and talking to some of the CAGV people the Connecticut Against Gun Violence because I don't wear anything that says DC Project when I go, because I hadn't been the head of DC Project in Connecticut before. But we'll chat. And yeah, it's really the COVID thing and having the state capital shut down to us and not being able to go see people in person totally stinks. And yeah, Ethan's Law, it's like it was passed here in Connecticut in 2019, where all guns must be locked up always, and now they're pushing it up to the federal level. Sorry about that. Thanks from Connecticut.
Never mind. We'll talk later. So we couldn't meet at the Capitol, but we'll share ideas. Sorry, Brooke.
It's okay. Yeah, so DC Project, this is our first year. This is my first year as being a leader here in Connecticut. And it's been super hard because with COVID, we haven't had any get-togethers. I can't go to gun shows. I can't go to clubs, all this sort of stuff. So recruitment is a challenge. And we've got a lot of stuff coming down the pike here in Connecticut. But I was really sad to see Ethan's Law go from state to federal. And it's like, and that, honestly, what I know of that case, that was another suicide. It was ruled an accidental shooting, but just never know. But yeah, so we've got tons of fun stuff. We're not as bad as New Jersey yet, but they are trying to go for the 1 a month bill. They are trying to go for that 1 a month bill. So it's just like, and those are just like the ones I skimmed over before the show today. So
yeah.
Brooke, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
How did Connecticut go from being like the heart of Gun Valley to transforming to being one of the leading gun control states?
I would say 2 words: Sandy Hook. For the longest time, guns control advocates had come in, they'd gone after the 10-round mag ban, they'd try to get lots of things passed, and nothing passed. After Sandy Hook, all of a sudden, they had the power of the people and the power of the press. And I was in the Capitol for 3 days of testimony, 18-hour days, and it was all the gun companies showed up. Colt was there. There's a whole bunch of different, like, there were a bunch of different gun companies that were here at the time. And once Sandy Hook and that was when I really became aware of the gun culture. I started like in 2010. So I'm a baby in the gun world, but I would definitely say Sandy Hook kicked the ball down the field way farther than it had ever gone before.
So prior to that, Connecticut did not have a big slate of anti-gun legislation, or they just had some that they were trying, but they never really got very far?
Yeah, the latter. They were trying, but they never got it down the field, as it were. Because I started competitive shooting in 2010, which is when I learned like why a 10-round mag ban is bad. Because if you talked to me in 2005, I would have been like, "Oh, who cares about a 10-round mag ban? They still got bullets in their car, in their gun. What does it matter?" Because I didn't understand. So it's one of those gun owners like, "Oh yeah, 10-round mags, whatever." But once I got into competition, I learned about firearms. I understood what a standard capacity magazine was. That's when I started paying attention. But they'd been trying to pass the 10-round mag ban since 2001, and it wasn't passed until Sandy Hook. So we'd been fighting it for that long, but it didn't have any traction.
Brooke, there's mag. I mean, there is the mag capacity, but restriction there. But I think didn't they have confiscation? They wanted everyone to register all of their so-called assault weapons and high-cap magazines, because I remember seeing this after Sandy Hook.
And yes, and we did, because as competitive shooters, we did have our standard capacity magazines and a fair amount of them. So we laughed at it simply for the fact that it's like there's no identifying features on a magazine. So it's some people registered their firearms, some people registered their mags. I actually have a video of the line out of our Department of Public Safety the day that, like the final day that you could register, and it was around, it's a really big building, and it was around the building, into the parking lot, down the street. It was crazy.
Wow.
So, yeah. A lot of people did, and a lot of people had a fishing accident. So.
Yeah, that's the next thing I was going to bring up, is because when New Jersey said that there was a mandatory turn-in of bump stocks, I believe they had a grand total of 0. When there was similar things that have happened, and you've got to go turn them in, the participation rate is small. And so if a lot of people were registering, I got to think that there were a lot more that had fishing accidents, as you said.
Yeah. Those boating accidents, you just never know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely challenging here in Connecticut. Just like we're the home of NSSF, the National Shooting Sports Foundation, which I love, but they're right in Newtown, which is right where Sandy Hook happened. And I was standing there because the Connecticut Against Gun Violence group was planning on picketing them, so those of us who are 2A friendly thought we would show up too. And I talked with some of them, and it's very challenging because they're fueled by so much emotion. And I'm all for violence prevention. I'm totally behind that. It's just the fact they only focus on firearms when they're trying to write up all this legislation. The tax, by the way, is supposed to go towards violence prevention programs, but they didn't say which ones. And it seems as though when we fought this tax 2 years ago, that it was CAGV, Connecticut Against Gun Violence, their violence prevention programs is where it was going to go. So that's the taxes. Oh, we've got micro-stamping is another thing that they're trying to go for all semi-automatic pistols.
California didn't teach them anything, huh?
Well, it's like when you don't know what you don't know, and you don't want to listen to anyone who does know, it's really hard to deal with. So it really does stink that we don't get to see them this year. So but that's about it.
All right. Anything else from my staff?
Brooke, we'll talk later, but I want to... Charlie, I've talked too much. Your turn.
Sorry. I was just going to say, Brooke needs to tell us about her shooting school. She's got all of her gear and swag and stickers and everything behind her.
Oh, all right.
I heard it's a great place to start.
Yeah, it's a great start shooting school. It's a great place to start. Like I said, in 2005, I would have been all for 5-round mag bans because I didn't know any better. 10, doesn't matter. 2008, my second child was born, and I wanted to learn about firearms. And I tried to get training, and I looked, and I didn't even understand what the classes offered. So my husband sent me to the range with some of his buddies, and I'd learn. And then I got into competition in 2010, and I got better, and I went to more training. And so I opened my school in 2014 to give people whatever they need. I just do one-on-one coaching with people for the most part. I do hold a pistol permit class on Sundays, but that's the only class I really offer. I just do coaching one-on-one with people who want to get into competitive shooting or just learn how to handle their firearm more confidently. I'm writing a book called Clueless to Confident, but I've been writing it for a long time, so I don't know when that's coming out.
Didn't you also just have your first male-only class?
I did. It's true. My logo, which I, of course, don't have anywhere around here, is 2 women back-to-back leaning against each other. And I always get the question, they're like, do you teach guys? I'm like, as long as they'll listen, yes. But so I did actually have my first all-male pistol permit.
And
so, yeah, it was.
I love that. As long as they'll listen.
Yes.
That is my world.
I love teaching anyone who wants to learn. It's the people who already know everything. I'm just like, why are you coming to me? You don't need me, obviously, because you already know what you're doing. So, yeah, that's the basis of my school.
I will say this. A couple months ago, Brooke came up to me to take a class because she wants to get a permit in Massachusetts. And she's an NRA training counselor, and she's got, the DC project. She's got her own shooting school. She's got all this stuff behind her. And I see her taking notes during my class. I'm like, oh, my God, what did I say that was wrong? It's just one of those things that freaks me out.
Absolutely not. It's like I am a perpetual student. I don't ever want to go to an instructor who doesn't also continue to hone their craft. And I love going to basic pistol classes like the one you did, Charlie, because the basics are always the basics, and it's the most important thing for all of us to get. And there's always another way to do it. And one of my things on my wall is one size never fits all. So I can always learn from everybody.
All right, well, we've got about 30 seconds left, Brooke. If somebody, I want you to plug two things. I want you, if somebody is interested in the suicide prevention, let them know how to go that way. And also, if they're interested in learning, they're in Connecticut and interested in learning how to shoot, give me information on that too.
All right, so dcproject.info. And you can get shirts that say, I want to be like Amanda Suffolk. No, just kidding. You can get DC Project.
You can.
Support us. You can. Oh, are they on there? I didn't know. I know I don't have one yet, so I'm not cool enough. But dcproject.info, if you're in Connecticut, I would love to have you join my team. It's a small team, and I need help. And then as far as a Great Start Shooting School goes, I am here on Facebook at agreatstartshootingschool.com. and Twitter and Instagram and all those things. But my work week is Thursday, Friday, Saturday for private lessons, one-on-one. And I think that's all of it. You can even call. You can make an appointment to call even, because I'm never on my phone. And I think that's everything you asked for, right? DC Project and a Great Start.
There you go. All right. Well,
suicide prevention.
Yes.
Saturdays.
Yes.
On Facebook. That was it. 7 o'clock usually. And sometimes it's on Sunday because life does not always go according to plan.
How do they find that on Facebook?
It's literally on my personal page, Brooke Cheney. So you can look up Brooke Cheney. I don't even know what my profile picture looks like, but it just says Brooke Cheney, Harwington, Connecticut. And I usually try to post up a thing saying it's going to be 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock during the week sometime. So it's just on my personal wall.
All right. Well, Brooke, I want to thank you so much for joining us. We do have to run off to break and then get to our news segment, but thanks again for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, do stay tuned. We're going to go to break. When we come back, gee, do you think there's been any news in the past 2 weeks? Yeah, we'll talk about it all when we come back right after this. This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by The Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant is designed for a broad base of citizens that range from students that don't own a gun on up to advanced students that train often. The Complete Combatant offers several different courses that build upon each other, from avoidance, using verbal commands, and preparing for contact, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, your 911 call, interacting with the police, to even dealing with the legal system in the aftermath. The Complete Combatant courses are a layered approach for all levels of experience that will walk you through all the many stages of decisions while developing a game plan tailored to your skills and your everyday carry. Please visit www.thecompletecombatant.com and make sure you mention this ad to receive 15% off. Again, that's www.thecompletecombatant.com and mention the ad for 15% off. Hey, and welcome back to the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. This is our news segment, and as I alluded to before the break, all kinds of stuff has happened over the past 2 weeks. I guess the first thing we need to talk about is that, big, steaming pile of H.R. 125 and H.R. 127 that dropped in the House. Sheila Jackson Lee. How can this woman be from Texas? I thought Texas
Houston.
was. Yeah, I thought Texas was gun friendly. Wow. Yeah.
It got easier after Hurricane Katrina moved a lot of refugees from New Orleans to Houston.
Now, okay. I guess that's
No,
possible.
No, it's possible. It's
Yeah.
truth.
Now, the interesting thing about 127, the real interesting thing, is not that we think it's going to get passed this time, because everybody's up in arms, but because it starts to raise the water temperature and it starts to normalize some of the absolute crazy abstract crap that they're asking for in this. And that is my biggest fear is they, as Brooke was saying in the last thing, that they were trying for a 10-round magazine, and they tried for 10 years. They just kept coming at it until they finally wore away the stone. And that's what I think is going to happen with 127 if we are not extremely, extremely careful and extremely active.
Yeah.
Can I want to read from her bills.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
She made some amazing claims, and I wrote about it. We'll talk about it at the end. This was a press release. This wasn't so much legislation. Just bizarre. She said there's been one mass shooting per day in the United States, 355 mass shootings in 2015. I know what Rip Van Winkle's story. I haven't been asleep. There weren't. To concoct those sort of numbers, you have to get every anytime there were two people killed, including the murderer, you call that a mass shooting. You have to count the weekend gang carnage in our deep blue cities, Chicago, Baltimore, St. Louis. You have to include those to come up with these numbers. And then she goes on to say, 92 Americans are victim of gun violence every day. And we're supposed to ignore that most of those are suicides. And the ones that aren't mostly are victims of drug gangs, again, in our Democrat-controlled failing cities. She then says the one that just, this is the reason I had to write about it. She said there's 0 mass shootings stopped by armed civilians in the past 33 years. I'm going to refresh your memory with one. Does anybody remember a church security team member who stopped a mass shooting in a Texas church last year?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't remember, go see your doctor. That's an indication that you're like me and you're getting old and forgetting things. What do you guys think?
There was also the church in Denver where the young lady on the security team.
Jeannie Assam.
Yes.
Right.
There was also the Clackamas Valley Mall in Portland, Oregon. There are a lot of shootings that are not mass shootings because
we stopped
them.
Stopped it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, John and I came up with numbers. Dean Weingarten, I came up with over a dozen. I think Dean, being the wonderfully meticulous person he was, came up with 16. The FBI came up with 8. So, wait a minute. We've got a representative who basically lied to the people in the text of a bill?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. I want to get this in fast because I want to get it before I forget about this. Totally off topic. We'll come back. But Diane says, I have a question for Amanda. I'm from Ohio, and there are a few gun groups to donate to. There is one called Ohio Gun Owners. Do you know if they are legit? I do donate to SAF, but I support organizations, but I like to support organizations that are in Ohio. There's a softball, Amanda.
Buckeye Firearms, I just joined for 5 years today.
Yes.
So I just did a 5-year membership. So if you're going to go in Ohio, go Buckeye Firearms.
They do a lot of great work. And I'm going to encourage everybody, if the organization that you're considering donating to is fronted by somebody with the last name of Dorr or the last name of Brown, no, specifically Dudley Brown, or anybody with the last name of Dorr, run fast, run far. They are only going to put your money in their back pocket. They say they're no compromise. What they're no compromise about is taking your money and doing nothing with it. Sorry.
At least nothing good.
Yeah.
Don't be sorry.
Other than that, you have no strong feelings, huh, Paul?
So, yeah, that's... and I got to add, I speak for Paul Lathrop only. I do not speak for the Second Amendment Foundation when it comes to that. But, anyway, back to H.R. 125, 127. I think, and I could be wrong, one of the two of them I know, if you want to continue possessing your firearms or if you ever want to get another firearm, you have to go through a mental health check. By the way, you got to pay for that. Yeah.
Not only you, but also that check would ask for your spouse, your ex-spouse, and your family members, or 2 friends if you don't have family. $800 a year tax on top of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, does any of this seem horribly elitist? I don't think that Michael Bloomberg is going to go through that effort.
Yeah.
It also includes you have to have civil liability insurance.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but they haven't stated the amount yet.
Right. So you have to have the mental health check so that you don't go off the edge. And then you have to have the civil liability insurance in case you do. It's just so presumptuous. Yeah.
And let's not forget that New York outlawed it. The liability insurance, remember New York, Washington State, kind of like, oh no, you cannot have this. It's murder insurance.
Yeah.
But here's what I hope happens. I hope a bunch of state attorneys general will say, pass any law you want. I'm not going to let you enforce it in this state. We've seen that happen with marijuana laws. We saw it happen with same-sex marriage laws. We saw it happen with immigration and marijuana. I think I mentioned marijuana already. So there are a lot of laws, and most of them are enforced at the local level. Drop the dime. Talk to your local state attorneys general, your state legislators, and say, you're going to put up with this? Let's find out.
Well, except the only problem with that, Rob, is we need to nip it. I'm Bernie Fife. We need to nip it in the bud, right? We need to stop it before it gets there. For the simple fact that if you get a sheriff or you get a state that says, I'm not going to enforce it here, it's a law I choose not to enforce. That way, when you reelect someone new, they choose to or not to enforce. And so you're going along fat, dumb, and happy saying, oh, there's a stupid law that nobody's enforcing. And then all of a sudden you get a new enforcer who is, I don't know, Beto or something. And then you're in trouble. And you don't nothing changed.
We're getting a whole lot of comments on social media, and I want to bring in from this nice lady, Brooke Cheney. We should have her on the show sometime. She said Connecticut tried to pass insurance for all gun owners too. The insurance companies wanted nothing to do with it. And that's
this.
Go ahead.
No, go. Keep going. Finish your thought.
Well, one more I want to get to. Roscoe Sullivan says, has the bill been passed? No, not yet.
No, it's in committee in Congress.
Yeah. it may never make it out of committee. This thing stinks so bad, and we're all going to be fighting against it. And here's where I think the danger is. These two bills have been submitted. We're all going to go tooth and nail to make sure they don't go through. However, what's to say that while we're fighting this, they don't put just a little side standalone bill that says, oh, well, let's just do universal background checks. While they're over here fighting H125 and 127, we're going to come over here with this little background check bill or this little red flag law bill. That's the danger, I think, of these two.
Exactly. It moves. It shifts the narrative to where when you look at that, that's not nearly as repugnant as this whole narrative over here. And Rob?
Buried in a 5,000-page bill like the political kickback bill just before the impeachment vote. And there was $1.6 trillion to back that up. Am I right, John?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So that's, it could happen just the way you described.
And I just got an email. I get emails every day from Giffords. They always ask for more money. But one of the things they said, just kind of like Rob and Amanda said, buried what they expect within the next few weeks is a universal background check bill. So they could hold H.R. 127 said, well, we're not as radical as Sheila Jackson Lee, elitist, Yale graduate, etc. We just want everybody to be checked out. So that, yeah.
I've had the background check discussion with some friends before, some anti-gun friends who say they're not anti-gun, and they will push the whole. You need to have a background check because you don't know if someone's committed a crime. And I say, listen, I've got a gun license. I have to go through 2 background checks to get a gun license. Since I have background checks in other states, I go through background checks in those states as well. When I bring this up with him, I ask him, I'm like, so do you have any background checks done? And he's like, well, no, I haven't. And I'm like, so you could have committed a crime, because they'll push the whole, if they don't do a background check when you buy a gun, then you could have committed a crime since you got your gun license. And I always say, if I committed a crime that would stop me from being able to have a gun, when I commit the crime and I get caught for it, they're going to take my gun license and they're going to take all my guns from me. So to me, like, how many background checks do we have to pass? How many is enough? And then I bring up that my friend hasn't passed any background checks, and he could probably be a criminal. And I hung up on him, and I haven't talked to him since. And this, honestly, this was after GRPC in Dallas in 2018.
Okay.
And this is a guy that I played in the band with for 10 years. We played up and down the East Coast and traveled all over the place and everything. And not a peep since then, not a word, because they don't get that if you've gone through a background check, you haven't done anything to keep you from passing a background check the next time. And if you do something, they're going to take your gun license away from you. How many background checks is enough, for God's sakes? You go through one.
I think the answer to that is 0. That should be the bottom line. Is a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of the free state. Right. I mean, you Amanda, look at it. This background saying how many and more and accepting it is unacceptable. And just keep in mind that they're doing this thing with this bill 127. Every time we've gotten a horrific gun bill that has come in and smacked us in the head, they've written it, they couldn't get it passed, it sat on a shelf, something happened, and then they shoved it through. And so that's what happened in 1934. That's what happened in 1986. That's what happened in 1994. And that's what's this is just sitting there, and it is a ticking time bomb.
Amen.
I'm sure you guys have seen the video from Sheila Jackson a couple years ago. I did see that it resurfaced within the last couple weeks, but it's a video of her talking about all of the stuff that she wanted to propose the last time that she did this. And she said she held an AR-15, and it was as heavy as 10 boxes.
10 empty boxes maybe that are this big, and
Maybe. She didn't say. It could have been a box of TVs. I mean, who knows how big this is? What are these boxes? What's in these boxes? How big are these boxes? And are boxes really a standard measurement of weight?
Who is that journalist that got so traumatized when he fired an
Gersh Huntsman.
Yes.
Bruised my shoulder. Wow. Probably traumatized me. Okay, let's beat this dead horse because we're all having a good time. Every one of these gun control claims, isn't that just it? A claim. The world will be better if. Okay, we can go prove it because we have evidence. These aren't the first times. We can go look at 2 decades of evidence in California and go, did it really make us safer? And we can also, and we need to also say, and here the good guys, it disarmed who then became victims of violent crime because we have, what was it, tens of thousands of sexual assault victims that these anti-gun laws disarm. That's an embarrassment. That's what we have to hang around their neck. The part that gets me angry is Illinois spends millions of taxpayer dollars every night investigating concealed carry holders to see if they committed a crime. You couldn't find a bigger bunch of Boy Scouts. If you took the phone book at random and said, did they commit a crime tonight? You would find more. So they deliberately look in the least likely place to find a criminal to spend your money and then charge gun owners for the privilege of owning a gun. Stop me before I rant again.
Guys, we are 5 minutes after the hour. Let's jump to break. We're going to have to do another news segment because we've done one topic in 20 minutes. So we're going to end up doing another news segment. But we do need to jump aside to break. We're going to hear from the Firearm Safety Institute. We'll be back with everything else as well as a bunch of comments that still keep coming in. We'll get to some of those right after this.
Firearm Safety Institute is one of Northwest Illinois' premier firearm training companies. They provide superior firearm training to all levels of shooters. Gary Doherty has been a trainer and concealed weapons permit holder for many years. While living in Nevada, he carried legally and has the experience to train you to do the same. Firearms Safety Institute offers a wide range of courses designed to meet the personal needs of both seasoned shooters and those that are new to the world of firearms. If you are looking to apply for the Illinois Concealed Carry License, Firearm Safety Institute can provide you with the professional training that meets the state's requirements. Gary accommodates classes of all sizes and can provide individualized instruction if that is your personal preference. He's happy to work with you and your friends to arrange private classes and will come to your location and work around your schedule. If you would like to get your Illinois CCW or increase your firearm knowledge or skills, go to firearmsafetyinstitute.com to start the conversation. Mention the Polite Society podcast and receive a 10% discount on your training. Remember, that's firearmsafetyinstitute.com. Get your Illinois CCW today.
And welcome back. This is the second news segment of tonight's Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. Before we go into our other topics for news, I want to get, and this could end up taking a whole lot of our time, and we may not get, but I want to get into this. Roscoe on Facebook says, I am against all background checks. I'm autistic, and lawmakers want to make it so that I can't have a gun even when I'm an adult. And he stated in a previous comment, I believe Roscoe said he was 15. That's a very legitimate concern. He also says, I just clicked it and I lost it. Guns stop hundreds of thousands of would-be rape victims. Yeah, they stop rapes all the time. And then finally, speaking of Sheila Jackson Lee, he says she benches 2 pounds max, maybe 1 rep. So anyway, and and he just commented, yes, he's 15. And what I want to go off of this is the people that are hurt the most by gun laws and the anti-gun regulations, the anti-Second Amendment regulations really, are the people who can least afford to be hurt. People who are people who are economically disadvantaged, physically disadvantaged, mentally. Let's face it, there aren't very many autistic people, and don't, Roscoe, don't you ever think I'm talking to you directly about this, just stating across the board. But there are not a whole lot of autistic people that get to the wealth level of a Bill Gates or an Elon Musk, where they can afford absolutely any and all restrictions. The people who have disabilities generally are in the lower income levels, and they are the persons that are hurt the worst when you have more regulations come across.
I think that people who have a physical handicap, if they walk funny, if they need a cane, if they're in a wheelchair, their rate of being the victim of violent crime goes up by a multiple. Was it 3, 4, 5 times? And they've done psychological studies. Criminals look at them like a cat looks at a bowl of tuna. They just light up. They go, that's the prey I want to attack. And too often we leave them disarmed. It outrages me. I hope it outrages you.
Yeah. Charlie, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say all of this stuff that that Sheila Jackson Lee is presenting is going to put so many people out of the ability to afford to have a gun or to be able to protect themselves. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy that they would outprice everybody to make it so that only super rich people can afford this sort of a thing. And it's certainly not the way our country was designed, that you have to go through training and courses and background checks and mental tests and all this nonsense to be able to exercise your right. It's all infringement, all of it.
One more comment, and then we really need to get into more news topics, but one more comment that I want to get up on the air, and that is Dooley Still on YouTube says, is there a firearms association in Illinois worth supporting? Oh boy, is there. Illinois State Rifle Association. They've partnered with the SAF on several lawsuits, and they are really worth supporting. They're working for your rights. And part-time, every once in a while, co-host on PSP, of course I'm referring to Gary, is very active in the ISRA. I myself wholeheartedly endorse them, and I believe I could probably speak for the SAF when I say they endorse them too, because we do a lot of work with them. So, let's talk
to
a
Twitter.
little bit. Pardon me?
Off to Twitter and Lauren Boebert.
Yes, Laura, and I also want to talk. Let's talk about that one. But the other one I want to get to before we go to break is the smart gun story.
Coming out of Kansas, yep.
Yep. Let's do that one first, then we'll go to Lauren, then we'll go to break. The smart gun. The Kansas has a law, and I don't have show notes. I've got so many social media comments flying in front of me, but Kansas, I believe, wants to introduce a bill making that all guns sold are smart guns. California tried that; it failed. And by the way, there's I think one smart gun. There was one smart gun on the market. I don't know if it still is. There's one coming, but they're like $2,000. Going right back to who's it going to hurt the most if these things pass? The low-income people. Plus, the last smart gun that was introduced, you can defeat it with 2 magnets.
No, well, think about it. That's the point right there. Is that if you can, because there's been some legislation to say that if smart guns come out, we want the police to have them first, right? So think about your cell phones. You go to places and they have a cell phone blocker in so that your cell phone doesn't get any signal. So what happens when the bad guy has a signal blocker for your gun?
I like it. Well, I don't like it, but you're right. And I want the president's security team to lead the way. Show me, Joe, what a great idea this is.
Absolutely. They with this one in Kansas, John, you may have read the story. I did. Anybody else can correct me as well. I've only read the story a few days ago, but I believe you have to wear a special glove to activate.
Yes.
Gloves.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to do is walk around wearing a Michael Jackson glove so that everybody in the world who knows about guns knows that, guess what, I'm concealing. It's concealed
What
for
happens
a reason,
if you don't
folks.
have? What happens if you don't have that hand anymore in the middle of the fight?
Yeah. What
You
if
have to
need
moonwalk.
change hands?
It's
Exactly.
not my glove.
Though
But
I
by the
don't
way,
think Kansas
Joe
is going to pass a law.
Oh, jeez.
Go ahead,
Okay,
Rob.
I got to get this one. Kevin, God bless you, Kevin. Kevin Sona says, I hear High Point is coming out with a new smart gun, but it runs on dial-up.
Hey, that's an Ohio-based company, and I have their carbine.
All right.
I really like their carbine.
Let's talk. High Point, God bless them. They've got a great warranty. I understand they really back their guns. I just hate the way they feel in my hands. You hear about, everybody talks about Glocks as Tupperware. High Point really feels like Tupperware. They need to do something with the feel of their gun. Other than that, I would have no problem with them. We got to talk about Lauren Boebert, and we're already up on the next break. So let's get Lauren Boebert out. She got her concealed carry permit for D.C. Rob,
And
go.
she is the congresswoman from Colorado. She cut a video saying, I'm all of 105. This is a dangerous city. I'm carrying here. Watch out. Now, she did go have to take a training class. She, surprise, passed. The embarrassment is that our nation's capital doesn't recognize permits from any other jurisdiction. Boebert jumped through the hoops, and then the chief of police said, yes, we've settled that case. She has her permit. Right, you stinker. What's an embarrassment is that, as you guys mentioned, the people who most need to be defended in D.C. aren't Congress critters, but people in Anacostia.
Yeah.
All right.
And I think my
I think the
congressman
other-
might be one of the ones doing it. And he's in a wheelchair, so.
Wow.
I think
Please.
there's two other pieces to this whole thing. Is watch that they've written legislation now, or Nancy's passed some kind of a rule down that says that if the Congress critters do not go through the metal detectors, they are punished with a $5,000 fine, and they have already fined some of them. Nancy was caught going around.
Yeah.
And so they reported her, and so now the Capitol Police say, well, they only fine you if they see you, and they're going to turn a blind eye to Nancy. So that's watch that. That's going to be a new fight, and it's rattling some cages now. Right.
That's perfect. That's the laws only apply to you, not me. If there ever was one.
Exactly.
Yep, that's Nancy on steroids.
It is. It's ridiculous. I gotta say, I'm okay with her getting her permit fast lane through this. I think it's. I don't want to say it's not a big deal, but I'm okay with it. I think she needs to be able to carry there so she can start to stick up for the rest of us and say, hey, this is as Amanda would say, this is a bunch of cheese.
Crockett cheese.
Crockett cheese. There you go.
It's no Gouda. It's no Gouda.
I hear you. There's people that probably need it more and have been waiting certainly longer than Congresswoman Boebert's been waiting. But I'm okay with a little bit of special treatment in this. I mean, somebody's got to crack the case and start getting in and saying, hey, listen, this is not a big deal, and this is normal, and this is what she does in her everyday life in Colorado.
All right, we are.
Let's figure she is a target.
Yes, she is a. I'm going to sound sexist, but I'm going to risk it. She is a very attractive young lady who is very short, obviously not terribly powerfully built, walking to and from the Capitol while she's going from where she lives to where she works. Do you think she's maybe a target? Also, she is very vocal that she's going to support and defend our Second Amendment rights. Do you think that makes her a target? Absolutely.
Yep.
I've interviewed Lauren. I've talked with her on the phone a couple times, and I am extremely impressed with her. And I'm right with you, Charlie. I'm not gonna moan or complain one tiny little bit about her getting a permit a little bit faster than some other people. So anyway, we are way past break again. Big shock. We've got 10 minutes before we're over the 90-minute barrier that I like to set for the show. Guess what? We're gonna go past it. So we're gonna go to break. When we come back, we're gonna talk DGUs and we're gonna wrap the show up all in one segment. So hang on, everybody. We'll be right back with our final segment right after this.
In 1928, Germany required its citizens to register their firearms, making possible Hitler's 1938 Nazi Weapons Act, disarming all Jews. Now ask yourself, what is the real consequence of registration? All in favor of gun control, raise your right hand. Brought to you by Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, America's aggressive civil rights organization. jpfo.org.
And welcome back to the Defensive Gun Use segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. These discussions are not legal advice. Some of us are trainers, but this is not formal training, and you need formal training. The Defensive Gun Use segment is intended as information, not as training. As always, the opinions of the hosts are only their own opinions and not those of any sponsors or other affiliations. I've probably said that exact phrase probably 400 out of the 575 episodes. Do you think I could say it without reading it? Apparently not. Charlie, you got our first DGU, man. What's up?
All right, this comes to us from Concord, New Hampshire. According to the police dispatch, witnesses, and the scanner chatter, a resident of the Firehouse Block Apartments called police accusing a 28-year-old homeless man of banging on an apartment door and then hearing gunshots. The police and fire responded to the building and found a man on the 4th floor. He was suffering from a gunshot wound. The man had countless interactions with the police in Concord for at least 8 years. On Friday, he'd been served with a no trespass paperwork from the building of another incident, as well as a nearby store. He had been trespassed. From downtown businesses due to theft allegations and charges. Police found him wearing boxing gloves and hitting signs and vehicles when they served him the paperwork. He had been attempting to bang down the door of an apartment when the resident shot him. The tenant is cooperating with the police, and the Attorney General's office reported that the case is still under investigation, with police eyeing the potential of a self-defense claim.
Who wants first?
I just hope the person
Guys,
didn't shoot through the door.
Yeah.
Sounds like you did, John. Yeah.
Well, you don't know.
Okay. Yeah,
you
let's
don't.
Let's. We've got two stories here that are going to come up, 1 and 2. There are times when it might look really bad. If you've got a glass door and a guy is trying to break it and the glass is shattered, you might have an argument that you could defend himself before he gets to the inside. If somebody's beating on a steel door and all you do is are offended by the noise, you need a great lawyer because you've got a big problem if you shoot at the door.
Right. Well, I don't think there's enough here. It says attempting to bang down the door. So do we really know where he was, how far he was? But at the same time, this wasn't the incident where he was wearing the boxing gloves, so he still had the ability to turn the knob. It was a prior incident with the police and the boxing gloves. So just separate those two in your mind, kids. Separate those two in your mind.
I mean, it's going to sound like he's mentally disturbed.
Yeah.
You
That's
think?
just what I was going to say.
Oh, take it from there, Charlie.
It sounds like he's mentally disturbed.
With violent tendencies.
Or maybe I'm going to steal one from Rob here. What do you think the toxicology would look like?
Right. Could be that too. A lot of the mentally...
That's what causes a lot of the mental illness, is the chemical imbalance caused by self-medication of advanced recreational substances, shall we say. Let's see here.
We're going to do a spare yet, or we're going to jump right to the end?
Well, I want to get one more comment in here, and that is Kevin Sona says, let me send it again here, just a second here. There we go. Kevin says, John Richardson, in Florida, you can shoot through your door. I'll tell you about our situation another time. And Dean Brewer says, okay, you guys are talking about states that don't have a stand your ground law. It doesn't matter if the door is made of plastic or oak in a stand your ground state. Dean, I want to tell you why it does. Because every round in your firearm has a lawyer's name on it. Whether or not you're right, whether or not you're justified in when you shoot, where that round lands absolutely matters. If you miss what's on the other side of that door, quite likely, because you can't see it, and it goes astray and goes through another door and strikes a 6-year-old in the head, guess who's going to court? And it is probably not going to be the guy who's banging on your door. They're going to be looking for the person that fired that shot. Anyway, I wanted to throw that out there. Let's go off to our next BGU. Who has that one, by the way? Does anybody assign to that one yet?
Rob does.
Oh, okay. Video doorbells and security cameras are becoming as commonplace as front doors on homes, whether they're connected and monitored by a security company, provided by your cable company, internet provider, or maybe they're just standalone. They allow homeowners to see outside their home while not exposing themselves to danger. And they've been known to catch and record defensive gun uses for posterity. A homeowner heard somebody trying to break down the front door of their home early on a Monday morning. He checked his security camera. He saw a person trying to kick in the door and demanding to come in. The homeowner then saw the attacker pull out a firearm. The homeowner ushered his family into an inside closet for safety, closed the door, and then grabbed his own gun. Pants on, gun on, folks. Remember that. He came to the front door and can see the would-be intruder pointing his gun. This quickly evolved into a shootout through the door. And I also assume the side lights, the glass panels at the side. The fight lasted less than a minute before the criminal fled the scene. He then fired a shot at another neighboring home as he drove away down the street. A few minutes later, deputies arrived on scene, eventually located and arrested the suspect, who was still in the neighborhood. It turned out the attacker lived nearby. But the homeowner and his family didn't know him, had never met him, never even interacted with him. Someone, Dane, who does the show notes, this is where Rob's going to ask about the toxicology results. You're right. I'm wondering if this guy was high. The homeowner did have a bit of repair work to be done. He was armed with a 9mm, and the intruder, it appears, based on the shell casings left on the ground, was using a .22. The 39-year-old suspect had been booked for attempted murder, shooting into an inhabited dwelling, attempted robbery, and, this will shock exactly none of you, felon in possession of a firearm and possession of ammunition. What do you guys think?
Well, the one thing I'd like... Go ahead, Charlie.
Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say the one thing I like is...
Charlie's picture's up. He gets it.
All right, so there we go. That's the deciding factor. I'm glad to see that they put this in for attempted murder. I like when they use this as, and if you get into a shootout, it should certainly be attempted murder. Whether or not you would hit your intended target is certainly another story, but that's what you were trying to do. You're trying to shoot someone. So I love it when they add in the charge of attempted murder. Not that I love it, but you know what I mean.
All right, John, you're up.
Well, what I was going to say is that, this guy had like a doorbell camera. He had a camera. He could see outside the door. And I think it's a safety feature. However, I've just read this weekend and today that there are attempts actually to ban those because of the shootout in Miami or Palm Springs Gardens, wherever, in South Florida, between the FBI and the kiddie porn suspect who eventually killed himself. He killed 2 FBI agents shooting through the door, but he watched them on either his doorbell camera or some sort of camera.
And it's a lot like how do I put this? Remember when everybody wanted officers to have body cams, and I still do. Everybody wanted if you were an officer, they wanted you to have a body cam, and then all of a sudden it showed that the vast majority of the police brutality claims or the racism claims against the police were unfounded because there was body cams. And now all of a sudden, the body cams have to go away. I think same thing with doorbell cameras. It shows what really happens. It shows the truth. And when people don't like the truth, they want the truth to go away.
I agree with you, Paul.
So, let's see. We're the only other comment I see coming through is Kevin Sona says, "Paul, tell John I'll only tell him if he comes to our camping event." All right, let's talk. We're going to give Kevin a free plug. Next week it'll cost you $20, Kevin. But there is a camping event coming up. Amanda's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Rob's going to be there. Charlie, you're going to be there. John, I guess you might be there. He's given that. Yeah, maybe. There's a camping event coming up March 20th in Central Florida. I can't remember the exact city, but if you go to the Florida Carry page on Facebook, you can easily find it. And a whole bunch of people are going to be speaking. Think of it as a mini GRPC. A lot of us are really looking forward to getting together, meeting with each other again, meeting with the public. And there's going to be a concealed carry fashion show. There's going to be food. There's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward. And you just got a comment. Dana says he's going to be there. Dana is our writer. And
cool.
George Geller says we need common sense doorbell camera control laws. So, wow,
too close to home.
Yes. All right, let's. We're just gonna scoot straight off into show close from here because we're over our 90 minutes. But I want to talk a little bit about who's been writing what. Rob, it's been 2 weeks, man. You have to have written something. You write something 6-7 times a day.
No, that's I don't have Dave down my back like you do. Democrat politicians said they wanted to disarm us, and they didn't wait long. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said President Biden would love to see action on gun control. You and I are not a congresswoman. We don't have government agents to protect us, not at home, not at work. We don't hire teams of armed security. Until help arrives, it's up to us to protect the people we love. I wrote about Sheila Jackson Lee's outrageous gun control proposals. I pointed out where she lied. But the mainstream media will echo Congresswoman Lee's lies. It's up to you and I to spread the truth. Get on it. My articles are up at Clash Daily, at Emmaland, and at my blog, slowfacts.wordpress.com. John, I like what you've been doing covering the NRA. Tell us about it.
Well, first the good news. Remington, or RIM Arms, is slated to reopen their Ilion, New York plant on March 1st. They have said that the 870 shotgun will be the first product line to be restarted. That means that the Remington workers are going to start going back to work. Now on to the NRA and its bankruptcy. There have been a number of developments, including one that actually just broke today. The NRA is asking that Bill Brewer be appointed as special counsel in the bankruptcy filing. That's not good, and hopefully the court will see through it. Next, the official unsecured creditors committee has been appointed, and it includes Ackerman McQueen and David Delakia. That's not good news for Wayne and Company, as Delakia for a appointed to manage affairs. And then actually today, NRA Director and Kansas State Judge Phil Journey, we met him many a time at SAF Gun Rights Policy Conference, filed a motion asking for an independent examiner to be appointed at management's conduct, among other things. He alleges the board has become a mere figurehead. That and more is at onlygunsandmoney.com.
On my part, the one story I want to bring up that I put up on the Gun Mag was about a ruling that came down in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court last summer, but it really went unnoticed. It only came out on a really not very well-read law blog, but it came out this week, and what has happened is in eastern Pennsylvania, it's not in, how do I put this? Open carry is legal in Pennsylvania. However, your open carry can be concealed if enough of your gun is covered. So if any, for example, what's in this particular one, what had happened was young man was seen with a brown handle, and I'm using the words of the police officer, a brown handle of a handgun was sticking out of this guy's waistband. He goes to contact the guy ducks into a store, and long story short, the guy gets arrested for concealed carry without a permit because part of the gun was stuffed into the pants. And this is extremely dangerous precedent to set. My article is up at thegunmag.com. I want to get to a couple of comments here real quick before we go away. Oh, and we're going to be talking about more stuff here in just a second. But Roscoe says, we need common sense government control. I love that. Yep. Amanda, what's been going on and what is going to be going on with Eye on the Target Radio?
I don't know, anything new? No, we're doing the radio show. We're doing the TV show of the radio show, and so our listenership is picking up dramatically, and so that's pretty darn cool. Putting together some more really pretty amazing lineups, and that's kind of it. You can check it all out on eyeonthetargetradio.com.
All right, and Charlie, what's been happening, what's gonna be happening with Riding Shotgun with Charlie?
All right, well, this week I am actually going to be making an appearance on the Armed Society on Wednesday night with Kevin Sona and Mike Pawarski, and we're going to be talking about Kevin's Florida Carry camping event. That's going to be this Wednesday evening. Tomorrow, I'm putting up my 95th episode of Riding Shotgun with Charlie that you can find on YouTube and Gunstream and on the OpsLens app, and you can listen to it on all the podcast formats. My passenger for tomorrow's show is Judy Wells from A Girl and a Gun from the DC Project, and she is in the San Diego area, or from the San Diego area, and she was a rabid anti-gunner before she became a rabid pro-gunner. And I'm actually heading out for a little road trip this week with my daughter to visit a college, and while I'm away, I'm going to be filming 2 shows down in Tennessee.
Very cool. Now, let me ask this. You do occasionally have somebody come back on the stagecoach, right?
Sometimes. There's been a couple of times I've done, I call it the magic of TV, where I film 2 episodes in one day.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say, I know a guy that would really like to be on episode 100. He's an old, bald, white guy, but,
I still have to set that up. I need to reach out to this gentleman. He said he would love to be on the show, and I've got to get myself out to the West Coast to make that happen. So
yeah.
That's in the works.
Yeah. Anyway, I do want to. We do have to step aside. One last comment. I'm not going to put it on the screen. And Roscoe, the 15-year-old, said, "How often do you do the podcast?" Roscoe, tune in every Monday at 6 p.m. Central Time. That's Polite Society Podcast. I want to remind everybody, also catch the other shows that the Second Amendment Foundation does. I do a daily, Monday through Friday, show called The Weekly Bullet. This is a discussion of that day's Second Amendment news. We do the Weekly Bullet on Saturdays at noon Central Time. And that is a discussion of the week's news plus an interview. And then finally, I also produce the Armed Society podcast, which airs Wednesday night. And I'm the video producer, but not ever on the air. Thank goodness. I'm usually hungover. On Sundays at 3 p.m., 4 p.m. Central Time, 5 on the East Coast. But we all know Central is the only time zone that really matters. Folks.
See how hungover he is?
I'm telling you, I'm just all fucked out tonight. It's been a busy day. So for right now, I want to say thank you, everybody, for watching. I want to thank Brooke Cheney for joining us on the show today. And if I can get down to the bottom of my show notes, that does wrap it up with our episode of the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society Podcast. Again, I'd like to thank Brooke Cheney for joining us today. So for Amy, Dana, Gary, Tracy, John, Susan, Amanda, Robin, Charlie, and Rob.
Until next time.
Stay safe.
Be aware.
And we'll see you down the road.
The views and opinions on the show you just heard are those of the host and the guest and are not necessarily the views of any sponsors or other affiliations. But hey, not everyone is as smart as we are.
All right, we are clear of recording. I'm going to go ahead and put our smiling faces back up. And everybody, thanks for watching. We're going to go ahead and shut the stream down. Again, come join us next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.